Welcome back. So global markets have been taking it a little easy because of that handover that we got from Wall Street, where U.S. markets finally pulled back after consecutive 6 days of buying. The SGX Nifty is actually still managing a little bit of green, but if you see some of the others in the region, there's some shades of red. Hong Kong, for instance, has been down by about 1% thereabouts. Mainland China is slightly lower as well. Let's see if we can kind of battle against this and continue our northward march, considering the kind of momentum that we had out here. Well, let's get the conversation going then. Prakash Diwan is joining in. Prakash, great to have you with us. And, what a end to Friday that we had. And now we're starting off this brand new week. I first want to get your sense on this whole clutch of defense stocks, because there will be a lot of chatter. We probably will see this GE-HAL deal get signed as well. Now, my question is, how much more upside in the near to medium term? And there's a whole bunch of stocks, right? From your BEL to your Astra Micro to your MTAR to HAL itself. Would you look at the basket? And if yes, which ones in the basket do you like more?
Good morning, Survi. So yes, lots of action expected. PM Modi's visit will not go without any follow through, I'm sure. And this time it looks like, we are entering a space which hitherto was always like, the exclusive club of some of the developed markets, and we did get to participate. So you will see a whole new era of growth and learning for these companies, or learning and growth in that order. So there is going to be some time lag before, they start benefiting from this entire entry into this haloed club.
Oops, okay, I think there's some issue with that video of Prakash. We'll just get to that in a bit. But of course, he's talking about the entire, defense space and the big moves that we've seen over there. HAL, of course, will be one of the big stocks to focus on, as our colleague Parikshit was just telling us. That deal that HAL has with GE, that has sort of fructified. And now the technology transfer will happen in phases. So, I mean, HAL, of course, has had a dream run. It's up 100% in the last 12 months. But now there is incremental positive news for that company.
So on Friday, I think, Surabhi, you had the shipbuilders all rally again, right?
Oh, yes, it was a huge
I think
rally.
Cochin, Masgaon, Garden
Absolutely.
Reach.
Absolutely.
And Prakash briefly mentioned that Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US.
Yeah.
And I think, defense is such an area that, a push by the sovereign to kind of force the other side to exchange and give technology. I mean, I think it happens at a different level.
Absolutely.
And companies, of course, will execute, and they will be the beneficiaries and investors, etc. But I think this, we will see, and I think Parikshit reported the story 2 weeks ago as well, that, this deal with the US that will be signed when, and of course, there were more details today in terms of technology transfer, etc. So I think extremely important. I don't know if the rally in shipbuilders is also predicated on the fact that, I think one of them tied up with ThyssenKrupp recently.
Yeah, that was, I think, a big one.
It's going to be an interesting one.
Absolutely. Which is why we'll ask Prakash once he gets back. The only thing is that a lot of these stocks have already they've been bursting through the charts, going through the roof, including the drone makers. And the smaller stocks. So you have the bigger names like HAL, and then you have the smaller companies, including like an MTAR, which are providing a lot of these precision systems to the DRDO, etc. A lot of these other organizations. Prakash, we have you back. So the question is, what to pick from this basket?
So, given the fact that this time is going to be a lot of headway in the aerospace side,
Oops, okay, I think there's once again an issue there. But, just want to mention that the valuations for some of these companies are now starting to look a bit on the higher side. So if you pull up, some of these names, Bharat Electronics, for example, is already trading at 20 times FY25 earnings. The other expensive stock is BEML, is trading at about 21 times actually FY25 earnings. A couple of these others as well, Bharat Dynamics, after the steep run-up, is trading at 20 times forward as well. So, the valuations, of course, after the big run-up.
So near 20 times expensive.
Compared to their own historic valuations is what I'm talking about.
We'll put
you
this,
can't compare them to FMCG companies.
We'll put this data out. I was looking at the number of companies in India which are now trading at over 50 times price to earnings. And the number is through the roof. And I'm talking about small caps, mid caps, not just, consumer names which have always traditionally been expensive. So
it's like 50 is the new 15 in India. Something like that.
The market here has always been expensive, but it's reached another
Absolutely.
level.
But let's get back to discussing about the markets. Prakash Diwan is still with us. Prakash, I wanted your thoughts on, how all of this would affect some of the rural-focused stocks, right? I mean, we've seen big movers come in the form of, say, an M&M or even an Escorts, not just in the auto space, but the other rural names in the FMCG space as well. Would this deficit in the monsoon in June, would it affect you? Because June is the most important month as far as the agricultural season is concerned as well. Would it affect stocks, or would you continue to have your bullish views here? And if yes, which ones would you be a bit cautious on now?
So, Surya, that's an important point because, while the element of agriculture in the contribution to the economy is reducing with every passing year, we still have a significant, weightage in that sense coming from there. But this time around, what would happen is it could lead to a little bit of shortages and deficits in the output and hence inflationary, impact on that. But I think the only segment that will probably get impacted is the agri-input side. I don't think tractors and the consumption side or the demand side from stemming from the rural markets is going to be an issue in the medium term. But in the short run, you'll probably have a deferment of purchases on the agri-input side, which is one of the peak phases for the entire year. So that's where you need to be cautious. Whether it's agrochemicals, whether it's fertilizers. So that's the space which could kind of get stretched if this goes on. So I'm not too worried about the impact of the monsoon because it always happens. We either have a bad start or a delayed start or a delayed ending, or a quicker ending. So that's always going to be the vagaries of the climatic change. But I think fertilizers is that pocket which you need to be a bit cautious on if it goes on, if it prolongs. Otherwise, demand side, I'm sure post this season, you'll see a restocking in that sense or a rebuilding of demand coming back big time.
All right, Prakash, stay with us.
Prakash, just while we're talking about all things up, wanted to get your call on TCS as well because of the news that we got on Friday. The stock, interestingly, kind of took it in its stride. I could say the cut was only 1.5%. But what's the sense? Will IT, see any more incremental selling, or do you think the selling is done? So IT will become a bit of a non-event till we hear from the companies again come July.
So, I think essentially IT will behave slightly differently, which is a bit deviant from the operational performance. And, the stocks will behave a bit differently is my sense. The reason is there are people who like heavy-weighted IT plays, which give you a very clear runway for the next few years. Now, if that is the issue, if that's the kind of deciding factor, around that parameter, if you look at a lot of the bottoming out has already happened, and especially the likes of HCL Tech, Wipro, even Infosys for that matter, I don't see any reason why there couldn't be takers for that. While we know that currently the business situation might not be the best. The American market the US market will probably start giving you some feelers of a change in outlook, and globally, I mean, this has come from Europe, the TCS debacle or this news flow. But I don't think it's a large trend that is in the making. So this could be one-off. And they've started going for smaller contracts to diversify the risk, de-risk themselves. So with that all in place, and there's so much of stuff happening on AI and IoT and ML. So it's not just the good old, ITS digitization that will that is something they have to depend on. So I think there are different pockets of potential revenue build-up from different geographies. And as they deepen that particular thing, you'll probably see IT stabilize. And that's my guess. You'll probably see money moving back into IT at some stage, whether it happens this quarter, after this quarter numbers, or probably the September end quarters. But I don't see any big risks out there, especially with the large players.
All right. Well, stay on, Prakash. We'll come back to you for more. For now.